Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, today we are going to learn a very important lesson of Arabic language, and before that we'll see the base of that lesson. In actual sense, we are going to learn Arabic tenses which are based on the verb. As you know, the verb, it shows the action in time. When we consider the time and when we consider the action, we remind of the verbs. And when we are reminded of the verbs and how we can define that this action happened before 3 hours, or this action will happen, or this work is going to be, or this work is this time in progress. So we have different tenses. Before that, we'll directly see the verbal sentences, or ALJUMLATULISMIA. Before this, you have learned about ALJUMLATULISMIA or Al-Mubtada wal-Khabar. Before saying that thing, as you know that ism or subject plus predicate, it gives the complete sentence when we are talking about Jumlatul Ismiya. When we are talking about Jumlatul Fa'liya, Al-Jumlatul Fa'liya, we say that structure of the sentence in Arabic is, first we bring the verb usually, and then we bring fa'il, and then we bring maf'ul. Maf'ul. So this is the structure of the verbal sentence in Arabic language. So dear students, as you know, in English you have the subject or you have the verb, and then you have different parts. But in Arabic you see there is a reverse thing, as there is verb, there is fa'il, and there is maf'ul. So we are not devoid of the rules and structures what we learn in English. As you know, there is a structural grammar. There is also, when we talk about tree structures, as Noam Chomsky says, but also we can draw the tree structure for verbal sentences in Arabic. So to remind this, so to know the verbal sentences, as you know, the structure is this: verb plus fa'il plus maf'ul. Now we'll see how we can work out with verbal sentences in order to convey the message, in order to convey the action in time. The verb, it can be now the verb, very good, the same verb is there, or it can be fa'ilun, and then it can be maf'ul. And now the structure is this: when there is verb, we have on fa'il usually there is dhamma, and then on the maf'ul there is fatah. Though the fatah can be a or it can be an. So we'll see here the sentence. For example, if I have to say that Hamid went to ate food. For example, I can say Hamidun. This is the Hamidun, and we know that what is the structure. This was the fa'il, and now what is the verb there? We have to say, we can say zahaba. Zahaba Hamidun, or we can say akala, in order to convey the message to the akala Hamidun ta'aman akala Hamidun ta'aman. So we can say Hamid ate food. When we have to make it definite, for example, we put al, we can say akala Hamidu, or we can say al-Hamidu at-Tu'am. So this was the first thing about verbal sentences, that what's the structure of the verbal sentence is the verb, and then there is fa'il, and then there is maf'ul. It is different than what we have in Jumlatul Ismiya, that's subject, and then there is predicate. It makes the complete sense. And when we say this structure, and it also makes complete sense. But herein we can say there can be further further parts of the sentence. For example, if you have another noun with huruf jar, that can have, for example, it's fell, it's file, it's maf'ul, and then it's huruf jar, and then it can be majroor, for example, any noun which is in the majroor form. So this is the structure. This is the structure. This is the base we are going to learn the tenses. So you remind, yes, dear students, you can also repeat with me that there are different sentences before we have read ALJUMLATULISMIA, that is the nominative sentences. Today we are going to learn, we are learning these verbal sentences. In verbal sentences, what we mentioned here, that verb is followed by fa'il and it's followed by maf'ul. So there is the case of transitive and intransitive verb, when the action is passed to the subject, this object, and when the action is not passed to the object. So when the action is not passed to the object, then the structure of the sentence is verb and then fa'il, verb and then fa'il. Like we can say zahaba hamidun, zahaba hamidun. So there are different sentences also which we mention in the future. Here we can wrap this and I will show you. Now say the structure was that verb plus fa'il plus maf'ul, but also there can be fa'il can be there, then there can be verb, fa'il, and then there can be maf'ul. This is also possible in Arabic sentences. What we mentioned earlier, that the fa'il is first and there is fa'il, but here can be also the fa'il, then fa'il, and then maf'ul. But this structure is not usually seen in Arabic language or Arabic grammar. But herein we have to remember, as in case of this very sentence, when there is fa'il and when there is fa'il at the first place, this fa'il, it agrees then in case of gender and in case of number. So we have to be very careful when we are mentioning the sentence structure in Arabic. When there is fa'il at the first place, we have to say that verb agrees, the fa'il agrees with gender and with number. But the earlier what we mentioned here, when there is fa'il and there is fa'il, the verb agrees only in case of gender. In case of gender, as we know, there is gender, there is nominative case and there is masculine, not nominative case, gender in case there is masculine and there is feminine. So you have to remember, or repeat with me, when the fa'il is at the first place, the verb agrees only in case of number and gender as well. And when the fa'il is at first place, the verb agrees only in case of gender and not number usually. So we'll see the sentence here, what it says and what it conveys. For example, if we have to say that people, if we have to say the students wrote, here student, a student is a singular and students are plural. For example, here I say at-tulab, not at-tulab, we can say first we'll give the example of the verbal sentence. The verb at the first place, I can say zahaba, zahaba, zahaba awladun, zahaba awladun, the boys went, the boys, not the boys went, zahaba awladun. If I say awladun at the first place, awladun at the first place, if I bring it here, and if I bring it here, then I have to make the agreement of verb and the noun in case of number as well. First it was masculine, the verb is also masculine, but it's singular here, it's singular here. ذهب أولاد, it is singular here because it's a rational number here. It's a rational thing here. It's in case of the the entity, or it is in case of the thing which can think. For example, people are there, the woman is there, the man is there. So it is the masculine singular, and then there is then there is noun. So it is ذهب أولاد, the third person singular. ذهب, the verb for third person singular, and then there is أولاد. So what we can say, what the messages here conveyed, that أولاد, it is also the masculine, and this is plural. But it is here the verb for masculine, but it's for singular. Here we can say it does not agree with number, as in case of number. But if we bring here it at the first place, then it at the second place, then we can say then for the third person plural verb we have to use. For example, ذهب ذهب ذهبوا. We cannot say then أولاد, and then we cannot say أولاد, then we cannot say plus ذهب. No, it's incorrect. Then we can say ذهبوا. We can say ذهبوا. This is the structure. This is the structure. When this will be brought at the second place, this will be brought at the second place. So this was clear to you now how we can make verbal sentence to agree with number and gender. Yes, you can repeat with me. When verb is at the first place, it agrees only in case of gender. And when verb is at the second place and the file is at the first place, it has to agree in case of gender and in case of number as well. Now, in case of sound broken plural, in case of broken plurals,